What we're seeing is the shilling now at 103 to the dollar. It's a two-year low. Inflation is still a factor. A rise in interest rates hasn't buffered this currency. In your view, what exactly is the problem?
Basically, of course, the rise in the CBR we saw last week was not expected to take effect overnight. The monetary policy is usually, a slow process. The effects will be seen within, probably we should see the effects within this quarter, within, let's say, between two to 3 months from now. But what's happening with the shilling is there's still a lot of demand from importers. Actually, I know today there are quite a number of manufacturers who are paying for deliveries. They'd made orders 3 months, 6 months ago that are coming in now. You have no choice but to meet those payments. But I think towards the end of the quarter, we should actually start to see an effect from the rise in the CBR that the MPC did last week. And interest rates, interest rates are going to rise. We've actually been seeing this across the board, from T-bills, the bond market, base lending rates. So I think the effects should come into play within this quarter.
All right, what we are seeing meanwhile is that borrowing costs for banks expected to rise up 14%, and that should ultimately translate into the interbank lending rates and even the consumer lending rates that we're seeing in the broader economy. How significant will the move be?
It's quite, analysts are still speculating whether we'll see banks raising their commercial lending rates, because the way it is so far, it's more like CBK, the MPC was playing catch up to most of the commercial banks, which in the last quarter, most of them raised their base lending rates by, actually twice, by about up to about 200 basis points, and some even more. That's more or less an average. So we are watching to see whether the banks will take advantage and still raise them further, but we think this is highly unlikely. But going forward, actually, it doesn't look too good. Actually, we expect lending to actually slow down.
Let's talk about the shilling as well, because for the banks, the biggest problem that they've had is dealing with shilling liquidity and needing somebody to mop up the excess shillings that are in circulation. Nobody's going to buy shillings at this rate, 103 shillings to the dollar. It's raised questions as to what we're going to see in terms of the rising of parallel markets for the dollar, that sort of thing. Apparently, the CBK has abandoned its strategy of selling directly to importers. But what are we going to see in terms of dealing with the circulation of a currency that isn't particularly attractive at the moment?
What's happening actually is, since the Monetary Policy Committee are pretty serious now on tightening liquidity in the market, they've actually begun this week. Today, actually, liquidity was pretty tight in the market. We expect them to do a lot more repos. We should expect an end to reverse repos. This should actually mop up the liquidity quite well. And every week, we've been seeing them mopping up quite a lot of shillings through the Treasury bill auctions. Last week, in all, they picked about 14, 15 billion. So, this going forward, we should expect liquidity to tighten, and there won't be so many shillings floating around to basically take up long positions in the dollar.
All right, you mentioned Treasury bills. Give us a sense of the yields and the rates of return, because obviously with interest rates going up, it should have some bearing.
True. T-bills are at their all-time high, apart from maybe in the early 90s. We're seeing the 91-day at levels of about 14.8%. The 6-month T-bill is at levels of trading at roughly about the same levels as the 91-day, and also the 364 days are as high as 15%. So, and we have a T-bill auction this week. We expect it to still move a lot higher.
All right, and then finally, let's move on to what's happening on the equities side. East African Breweries is talking about a rights issue, and this concerns a buyback of their stake in the Tanzanian brewer, the stake from SAB. Just tell us how attractive EABL is right now for investors, whether or not they're going to be able to raise 23 billion Kenyan shillings through a rights issue.
EABL have actually not confirmed that they're doing a rights issue, but I think it's pretty obvious to the market that's the route they'll take with interest rates at where they are. It's highly unlikely that they'll come and issue debt. But I mean, EABL, what we're seeing with the price is that this factor seems to already have been priced into the trade, the price it's trading at, because there was actually no reaction from the market today. Most investors you speak to have already priced this in. So it's actually quite attractive, even though it's trading at this level right currently. If you look at the PE ratio, I mean, it's quite an attractive counter at the moment.